April 9th, 1945. Dawn breaks over Flossenbürg concentration camp in the mountains of Bavaria. The war is nearly over. American forces are miles away. Soviet troops are pushing toward Berlin. In less than 2 weeks, Adolf Hitler will be dead. In less than a month, Nazi Germany will surrender unconditionally. But for 7 men locked in the camp bunker, liberation will come too late. At approximately 6 a.m., SS guards unlock the cells and bring out the condemned prisoners. Among them is a 57-year-old German general named Hans Oster. For the past 6 years, this Wehrmacht officer has worked tirelessly to overthrow Adolf Hitler, to warn Germany's enemies about Nazi attack plans, to save Jews from extermination. He's risked everything to stop the regime from within. Now he's about to pay the ultimate price. The execution method chosen for him is designed to maximize suffering: thin rope or cord around the neck, suspended from hooks, death by slow strangulation, taking up to 30 minutes. And here's what will shock you most. This man, who tried harder than almost anyone to kill Hitler and end the war, was arrested not for the famous July 20th plot, but for something far simpler. He helped Jews escape Germany. That act of human decency set in motion a chain of events that would end with him hanging naked in a concentration camp execution yard, murdered by the same regime he'd spent years trying to destroy. August 9th, 1887. Hans Paul Oster is born in Dresden, Saxony, the son of an Alsatian pastor of the French Protestant Church. He grows up in a religious household with strong moral values, the kind of upbringing that emphasizes duty, honor, and service. In 1907, at age 20, he joins the German army as an artillery cadet. He's ambitious, intelligent, politically conservative, everything you'd expect from an officer in Kaiser Wilhelm's military. When World War I breaks out in 1914, Oster serves on the Western Front as an artillery officer. He's brave under fire, wins multiple decorations for valor, rises through the ranks. By 1916, he's promoted to captain and appointed to the German General Staff, an elite position reserved for the most promising officers. He's part of Germany's military aristocracy now, destined for a distinguished career. But there's another side to Hans Oster that his superiors don't see. He's impulsive, reckless, a womanizer who drinks too much and keeps irregular hours. His biographer describes him as volatile, cynical, someone many peers consider unfit for the careful, methodical work of general staff duties. And in 1932, his personal life catches up with him. Oster is married to Gertrude Knoop. They have 3 children, but he's having an affair with another woman, violating the strict code of military ethics. When the affair comes to light, he's brought before a court of honor. The verdict is harsh. He must resign from the army, effective December 31st, 1932. His military career, which had seemed so promising, is over in disgrace. January 1933, Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. And Hans Oster, unemployed and desperate for work, finds himself with unexpected options. Hermann Göring has set up a research department under the Prussian police, ostensibly for intelligence gathering, actually for phone tapping operations. Oster gets a job there. Then in October 1933, he transfers to the Abwehr, German military intelligence, as a civilian employee working on counterintelligence. It's a fresh start, and for a while Oster welcomes the Nazi regime. Like many conservative military officers, he believes Hitler will restore German pride, rebuild the military, reverse the humiliation of the Versailles Treaty. He has no idea he's watching the rise of history's most destructive tyranny. But something happens in 1934 that changes everything: the Night of the Long Knives. Hitler orders the SS to murder the leadership of the SA, the brown shirts who helped him seize power. Over the course of 3 days, June 30th to July 2nd, the SS kills at least 85 people, possibly hundreds more. Among the dead are SA leader Ernst Röhm and General Ferdinand von Bredow, Oster's superior in the Abwehr. Bredow is shot without trial, without charges, murdered simply because Hitler considers him a potential threat. And Hans Oster watches this happen. He watches the SS murder a general officer of the German military with impunity. He watches the army do nothing in response, and something breaks inside him. The regime he thought would restore German honor has just revealed itself as a criminal organization willing to murder its own officers. From that moment forward, Oster becomes an enemy of the Nazi state. working from within to bring it down. Over the next 4 years, Oster builds a network of like-minded officers who oppose Hitler. He works closely with Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, the head of the Abwehr, who shares his anti-Nazi views. He recruits Hans Gisevius, Arthur Neba, and others who are horrified by what they're witnessing. And in 1938, when Hitler announces his intention to invade Czechoslovakia, Oster sees his chance. He organizes what becomes known as the Oster Conspiracy, the first serious military plot to overthrow Hitler. But wait until you hear what Oster did that most historians consider treason, but which might have saved millions of lives if anyone had listened. September 1938. Hitler is demanding the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia, threatening war if Britain and France don't back down. Oster and his co-conspirators, including General Ludwig Beck, believe this will trigger World War II, a conflict Germany isn't ready to fight. Their plan is simple. The moment Hitler gives the order to invade, they'll stage a coup. Wehrmacht units loyal to the plot will storm the Reich Chancellery, arrest Hitler and the Nazi leadership, and restore order under a new government. They have officers in key positions. They have detailed plans. Everything is ready. They just need Hitler to start the war. But British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain has other ideas. On September 28th, he agrees to meet with Hitler in Munich. On September 29th, he signs the Munich Agreement, giving Hitler everything he wants without a shot being fired. The Sudetenland is handed to Germany, Czechoslovakia is dismembered, and the conspiracy collapses. Hitler has achieved a diplomatic triumph. He's proven that threats work, that Western powers will back down rather than risk war, and the conspirators look like fools for doubting him. The coup is off. The regime survives, and Oster is forced to watch as Hitler becomes more powerful, more popular, more dangerous than ever. But Oster doesn't give up. In 1939 and 1940, he does something that historians still debate. He warns Germany's enemies about Hitler's attack plans. In November 1939, he gives exact details of the upcoming invasion of Belgium and the Netherlands to Dutch military attaché Gijsbertus Jacobus Sass. Repeatedly, 20 separate warnings as Hitler keeps postponing the attack. Oster is trying to provoke a Western response, trying to give Belgium and the Netherlands time to prepare, trying to make Hitler's plans fail. It's the ultimate act of resistance, providing military intelligence to enemy nations. If anyone discovers what he's doing, he'll be executed for treason. But Oster doesn't care. He believes Hitler must be stopped, and if warning Germany's enemies is the only way to do it, then that's what he'll do. The warnings are ignored. The Dutch think it's disinformation, a German trick. When the invasion finally comes on May 10, 1940, the Netherlands and Belgium are overrun in days. Oster's warnings were accurate, but nobody acted on them. And once again, Hitler's military triumph makes resistance seem futile. The Wehrmacht has conquered Western Europe. Hitler appears unstoppable. And Oster's network of conspirators shrinks as more officers decide that opposing the Führer is pointless or too dangerous. Throughout the early 1940s, Oster continues working against the regime from within the Abwehr. He provides false papers to help Jews escape Germany. He uses Abwehr resources to fund and protect resistance activities. He maintains contact with other opposition groups, trying to coordinate another coup attempt. And he recruits new members into the conspiracy, including a young Lutheran pastor named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer isn't military. He's a theologian, a man of God who's concluded that Hitler is evil incarnate and must be opposed. Oster brings him into the Abwehr undercover as an intelligence agent, protecting him from conscription while he travels Europe making contact with foreign churches and resistance groups. But in April 1943, everything falls apart. An Abwehr operation to smuggle Jews out of Germany is discovered. Several officers are arrested, and the Gestapo starts investigating the entire network. On April 5, 1943, Hans Oster is arrested. So is his close friend Hans von Dohnanyi. So is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The official charges are helping Jews escape and currency violations. The real reason is suspicion that these men are working against the regime. Oster is interrogated. His house is searched. Files are seized. But the Gestapo can't prove the extent of his conspiracy work. Not yet. He's not charged with high treason. He's placed under house arrest and dismissed from the Abwehr. For now, he's alive. But the net is closing. July 20th, 1944. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg plants a bomb in Hitler's conference room at the Wolf's Lair. The explosion goes off. Stauffenberg is certain Hitler is dead. He flies back to Berlin and triggers Valkyrie, the coup operation designed to seize control of the government. But Hitler survives. Stauffenberg and 3 co-conspirators are executed that same night. And then the investigations begin. The Gestapo interrogates everyone connected to the plot. Hundreds of suspects are arrested. And during one of these interrogations, someone talks. Someone names Hans Oster as a key figure in the resistance. Someone reveals that Admiral Canaris, the former head of Abwehr, was the spiritual founder of the resistance movement. On July 21st, 1944, Oster is rearrested, this time on direct suspicion of involvement in the July 20th plot. Canaris is arrested on July 23rd. Both men are sent to Gestapo headquarters for intensive interrogation. For months, they're questioned, tortured, pressured to confess, to name others, to reveal the full extent of the conspiracy. Oster holds out. So does Canaris. They admit nothing that can't be proven. The Gestapo knows they're guilty, but they need evidence. And then on April 4th, 1945, with Soviet troops approaching Berlin and the war clearly lost, someone finds Canaris's secret diaries hidden in a safe at a destroyed Abwehr facility. The diaries contain everything. Years of notes about resistance activities, names of conspirators, plans for coups, evidence of Oster's warnings to foreign governments, evidence of operations to help Jews escape. Everything the Gestapo needs to convict both men of high treason. Hitler reads the diaries and flies into a rage. These men betrayed him. These officers, who swore oaths of loyalty, who wore German uniforms, who were entrusted with intelligence operations, they worked for years to destroy the Reich, and Hitler wants them dead. Not quick executions, slow deaths, humiliating deaths, deaths that will serve as warnings to anyone else who might think about betrayal. He orders all the surviving conspirators moved to Flossenburg concentration camp, and he orders special executions. April 8, 1945. Hans Oster, Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, General Karl Sack, Captain Ludwig Gehry, and 2 others are brought before an SS drumhead court-martial at Flossenburg. It's not a real trial. There's no defense. No witnesses for the accused. No appeal. SS Judge Otto Thorbeck presides over a proceeding that lasts less than an hour. The charges are treason and conspiracy against the state. The evidence is Canaris's diary. The verdict is predetermined. All 7 men are sentenced to death by hanging. The executions will take place at dawn the following morning. The condemned spend their final night in the camp bunker, dark cells with no windows, no food, nothing but stone walls, and the knowledge that morning will bring death. What does Hans Oster think about during those final hours? Does he regret his opposition to Hitler? Does he wish he'd stayed silent, kept his head down, survived to see the war's end that's now just weeks away? Or does he find peace in knowing he fought against evil, that he tried to stop the Holocaust, that he warned foreign governments and helped Jews escape and conspired repeatedly to remove the Nazi leadership? We'll never know because Oster leaves no final statement, no letter, no testament. All we have is what witnesses report about his last moments. April 9th, 1945. The sun isn't up yet when the guards come for the condemned. It's around 6 a.m. Hans Oster is brought out first, along with the 6 others sentenced to die. They're marched to the execution yard, a small area within the camp where gallows have been prepared. And then the guards do something designed to inflict maximum humiliation. They order the condemned to strip naked. 7 middle-aged and elderly men, officers and clergy, forced to undress completely in the cold morning air, while SS guards watch and jeer. This is the ultimate degradation for military officers, to be executed naked like common criminals, stripped of dignity along with their clothes. Oster and Canaris and Bonhoeffer comply because they have no choice. They stand there, exposed and vulnerable, waiting to die. The execution method is standard hanging, but crueler than the quick drop used in some countries. There are hooks attached to wooden beams. Thin cords are placed around each man's neck. Not thick rope that might snap the neck cleanly, but cord or wire designed to strangle slowly. Each condemned man is positioned under a hook. The cord is attached, and then they're lifted slightly so their toes barely touch the ground. Or perhaps they're dropped a very short distance. The goal is strangulation, not a broken neck. Death will take minutes, not seconds. Hans Oster hangs there, the cord tight around his throat, cutting off air and blood flow. His body fights instinctively, legs kicking, hands clawing uselessly since they're bound. His face turns red, then purple as oxygen deprivation sets in. He can feel himself dying, feel the darkness closing in, feel his lungs burning for air that won't come. Witness testimony varies on how long it takes. Some say 10 minutes, some say up to 30. The truth is probably somewhere in between, but every second is agony. Oster is conscious for most of it, aware that he's suffocating, aware that there's nothing he can do to stop it. This is the price of resistance. This is what happens to those who dare oppose Hitler. Admiral Canaris hangs beside him, dying the same slow death. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the pastor who joined the conspiracy because his faith demanded he oppose evil, he dies this way too. One by one, the 7 men stop struggling. Their bodies go limp. Their eyes glaze over. The camp doctor approaches each one, checks for vital signs, confirms death. Hans Oster, general of the Wehrmacht, deputy head of the Abwehr, a man who spent 6 years trying to overthrow Hitler and save Germany from itself, is dead at age 57. It's approximately 7 a.m. on April 9th, 1945. 2 weeks later, on April 23rd, American forces liberate Flossenburg. They find the bodies, the execution records, the evidence of what happened. Within a month, Hitler is dead by suicide in his bunker. Within 3 weeks after that, Germany surrenders unconditionally. The war Hans Oster tried so desperately to prevent or shorten is finally over. But he didn't live to see it. He died thinking his efforts had failed, that he'd sacrificed everything for nothing. But here's the truth that took decades to recognize. Hans Oster didn't fail. His warnings to the Dutch, while ignored at the time, are documented proof that German officers were trying to stop Hitler's aggression. His work smuggling Jews out of Germany saved lives, real people who would have died in concentration camps but escaped because Oster risked everything to help them. His recruitment of Dietrich Bonhoeffer brought a powerful moral voice into the resistance, someone whose writings would inspire millions after the war. And his role in multiple coup attempts, while unsuccessful, demonstrated that not all Germans supported the Nazi regime. That resistance existed from within. After the war, when historians piece together the story of German resistance to Hitler, Hans Oster emerges as one of its earliest and most dedicated members. Unlike conspirators who only joined after Germany started losing, Oster opposed Hitler from 1934 onward. For 11 years, he risked his life daily to undermine the regime. He passed intelligence to enemies. He protected Jews. He organized coups. He recruited others into the conspiracy. He never stopped fighting, even when fighting seemed hopeless. And that matters, because it proves that Germans had choices, that some chose resistance over complicity, that courage existed even in the darkest times. The manner of Oster's death, the humiliating naked execution by slow strangulation, tells you everything about how the Nazi regime viewed its opponents. They couldn't just kill him quickly and be done with it. They needed to degrade him, to make his death as painful and shameful as possible, to send a message to anyone else who might consider betrayal. But there's an irony here that the Nazis missed. By executing Oster in such a brutal fashion, by treating him like a common criminal rather than an officer, they inadvertently elevated him. They made him a martyr. They proved that he was dangerous enough, important enough, threatening enough that Hitler personally wanted him to suffer. Years after the war, when West Germany was trying to reckon with its Nazi past, courts began reviewing the convictions of resistance members. In 1956, a court exonerated SS judge Otto Thorbeck, who had presided over Oster's kangaroo trial, ruling that the executions were legal because the Nazi regime had the right to execute traitors. This outrageous decision stood for 40 years until 1996, when the Berlin State Court finally rescinded it, acknowledging that Oster and the others were victims of judicial murder, not legitimate executions. In 2007, a memorial was unveiled at Flossenburg honoring the 7 members of the German resistance executed there on April 9, 1945. Oster's name is on that memorial, along with Canaris and Bonhoeffer, recognized finally as heroes rather than traitors. But the question that still haunts historians is this: why did Oster do it? He wasn't a communist or a Democrat. He was a conservative monarchist who probably would have preferred a return to Kaiseristic Germany over a democratic republic. He wasn't Jewish, so the Holocaust didn't directly threaten him. He had a family to protect. He could have kept his head down, done his job, survived the war, and lived a long, comfortable life. Why risk everything to oppose a regime that most Germans supported? The answer seems to be in his upbringing. Oster was the son of a Protestant pastor. He was raised with a strong moral code, with the belief that some things are right and some things are wrong, and that you have a duty to oppose evil even when opposing it is dangerous. When he watched the SS murder General von Bredow during the Night of the Long Knives, something fundamental broke in Oster. He realized he was serving a criminal regime, and his conscience wouldn't let him continue without resistance. From that point forward, he lived a double life. Outwardly, he was a loyal officer doing his job. Inwardly, he was working tirelessly to bring down the government he served. That kind of duplicity requires extraordinary courage. Every day, Oster walked into Abwehr headquarters knowing that if he was discovered, he'd be tortured and executed. Every time he passed intelligence to foreign contacts, every time he helped a Jew escape, every time he recruited someone new into the conspiracy, he was risking not just his own life, but the lives of his wife and children. The Nazis had a policy of Sippenhaft, kin punishment, where family members of traitors could be arrested and killed. Oster knew this, and he did it anyway. Compare Oster's fate to that of the men who organized the July 20th plot. Flossenbürg and his immediate co-conspirators were shot the same night, quick deaths by firing squad. Erwin von Witzleben and other senior conspirators were executed at Plötzensee prison in Berlin on August 8, 1944. They were hanged from hooks with thin cord, filmed on Hitler's orders so he could watch them die. It was brutal, degrading, designed to maximize suffering. But at least it happened relatively quickly after the plot failed. At least they knew why they were dying. Oster spent 9 months in captivity after his second arrest. 9 months of interrogation, torture, uncertainty. He didn't know if he'd be executed or if he might somehow survive until the war ended. He watched Germany collapse around him, watched the war turn decisively against the Nazis, knew that if he could just survive a few more weeks or months, he'd be liberated. And then, just 3 weeks before American forces arrived, he was executed. The timing is particularly cruel. What makes it worse is that Oster's execution served no purpose. By April 1945, the war was lost. Hitler was hiding in a bunker in Berlin. The Reich was disintegrating. Executing 7 resistance members at Flossenburg accomplished nothing except satisfying Hitler's rage. It didn't change the outcome of the war. It didn't intimidate anyone into loyalty. There was nobody left to intimidate. It was pure revenge, killing men who'd opposed Hitler simply because Hitler wanted them dead before he died himself. The detail about the piano wire, which appears in many accounts, has been disputed by historians. Some sources say thin hemp rope or cord was used, not actual piano wire. The hooks were standard fixtures in German execution rooms, used to attach the noose, not necessarily meat hooks from slaughterhouses, as sensationalized accounts claim. But whether it was piano wire or rope, whether the hooks came from a slaughterhouse or were purpose-built for executions, doesn't matter. The method was designed to cause death by slow strangulation. The condemned suffered terribly, and that was the point. Hitler wanted these men to die in agony. Hans Oster represents something important in the history of Nazi Germany. He proves that resistance was possible. Not successful, not without terrible cost, but possible. He proves that not all German officers were complicit, that some actively fought the regime from within. He proves that opposition to Hitler existed from the beginning, not just when Germany started losing. And he proves that courage can come from unexpected places. This womanizing, impulsive, reckless officer who was drummed out of the army for adultery became one of the most dedicated resistors in German history. His legacy is complicated. Some view him as a hero, a man who sacrificed everything to fight evil. Others point out that his warnings to foreign governments constitute treason by any definition, that he was violating his oath and giving aid to Germany's enemies. Both perspectives are true. Oster committed treason against the Nazi state. He knowingly helped foreign countries prepare defenses against German attacks. He undermined his own nation's military operations. By traditional standards of military loyalty, he was absolutely a traitor. But the regime he betrayed was criminal. It was perpetrating genocide. It was waging aggressive war. It was destroying Germany morally and physically. And Oster understood that loyalty to such a regime was itself immoral. He chose higher loyalty to human decency over loyalty to the state. That's not an easy choice. It's not one anyone should judge harshly. The fact that he was hanged with cord or wire, slowly strangled to death in a concentration camp execution yard, stands as testament to how dangerous the Nazi regime considered him. They didn't shoot him like a soldier. They didn't give him a trial with real charges and evidence. They degraded him, humiliated him, and killed him in the most painful way they could devise, because Hans Oster scared them. This one officer, working from within military intelligence, had spent years undermining their operations, protecting their intended victims, organizing coup attempts. He was too dangerous to be allowed to live, even for the few weeks until American liberation. Never forget the thousands of Germans who resisted the Nazi regime. Never forget the conspirators executed after the July 20th plot. Never forget the ordinary citizens who hid Jews, who distributed anti-Nazi leaflets, who refused to give the Hitler salute, who paid for their small acts of defiance with their lives. And never forget that Hans Oster, for all his personal flaws, stood up to evil when most people chose collaboration or silence. He paid the ultimate price, dying naked and humiliated in a concentration camp, killed by the regime he'd spent 11 years trying to destroy. But his resistance mattered. The Jews he saved lived. The intelligence he passed was documented. The coup attempts he organized proved that not all Germans accepted Hitler, and his execution, coming just weeks before Germany's surrender, stands as a final cruel illustration of Nazi brutality, killing a man who'd fought for years to save Germany from itself. What other buried stories from history should we uncover? What lessons must we learn from those who resisted tyranny at the ultimate cost? Let us know in the comments below. And subscribe for more historical truths that challenge everything you thought you knew about courage, resistance, and the price of opposing evil. Because the real lesson of Hans Oster isn't about one execution in one camp in 1945. It's about the eternal struggle between conscience and obedience, between doing what's right and doing what's safe, between those who resist tyranny and those who enable it.